This is the Freud's Angels podcast.
I'm Vanessa, your intuitive counselor.
And I'm Grace, your spiritual guide. Our goal is to help you learn to blend your spiritual connection
And mental consciousness to give you clarity
and understanding to lead a life
of your choosing. Welcome.
We're glad you're here. Hey, angels, what's up? Welcome
Perfect way to start this episode. Perfect.
Welcome to episode 187. Is it, Vanessa?
187. Yeah, when I wrote it down, if you're a gangster rap person,
I was going to say 187. Oh God, friends, this is like things from our previous lifetimes and like our young youth that we.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It kind of makes sense with our feelings today. Are just kind of like, yeah, that's that today.
We should put a trigger warning. Listen to this only when you're like low energy. Like, don't listen to this when you're trying to like learn shit.
Yeah, right. Well, we don't know yet. Let's be honest. Yeah. We don't know yet. We're not anticipating this being the nugget episode. But we don't know either because we sit down every week, right? Like we have our purpose and then we're soul led and we're spirit led. So we don't really know. We don't know what's going to happen. But I feel like I already feel a little bit like I'm really glad that we just decided to go with it, because I do think that, you know, what we've been talking about, how we feel today, you know, is like necessary to sit in it, because it's the only way we're going to get whatever it is that's supposed to be coming, right? Like that trust that we have in the universe, that everything has a design purpose, and being like, well, there must be a purpose for this too. And just because I can't understand it right this second doesn't mean I won't understand it in the future.
Yeah. But I think about when I think about how we're feeling, and guys, by the way, we're very chill. It's like, you know, that kind of, if you ever have smoked pot, which we do not suggest or condone, but if you ever smoked it, not that I have a problem with it, it's that feeling you get and you're just like, what? It's like the body is alive and conscious, but your brain is like non-existent. It's that what feeling?
Yeah. It's like the white noise, right? Like I feel very white noisy today.
I could totally, like, if I had a couch, if my couch was here, I could lay on my couch and just listen to nothing, like rain things on YouTube and just like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally chill. But you know, I wanted to say it's kind of it's expected. What we were downloading in the first 3 hours that we were talking, all of this stuff that we've been holding on to in our energies, in our mental spaces, in our emotional spaces, all the things that we're coping with. And we come here and it's like we open the container and we download everything and we're like, and it's stuff that is like so heavy to us, that is so alive. And to have released that valve, we're kind of like, oh, thank God, we don't have to hold it anymore. And I don't know, you know, when you talk about when, like, it's like going to therapy, when you can download what you need in therapy, and you're kind of left almost not deflated, but it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have to hold that up any longer. I can let go. And we don't realize how heavy things are until we've released them from our being.
Yeah, or how we've been running on it, right?
Yeah.
Because when you said that deflation thing, I was like, oh gosh, yeah, that happens to a lot of clients, where like I can tell that they've been running on their nervous energy, and then we released it in session and they don't know what to do. Like they're like exhausted, right? Like and they still got shit to do, right? Like, and so, you know, it's kind of that knowledge that they did deflate their balloon, that they, you know, because it was full of all the things that it was full of, and having to bring in something else, you know, in order to just get them by, really, sometimes, so that they can regenerate when it's time to regenerate. Because it's true, you know, I feel that's exactly what I feel like happened this morning. There's been so much tension within me, and not anxiety, which is very different. I was watching a reel the other day, And it is somebody that sometimes I contemplate not following, because sometimes, sometimes when you follow somebody that you feel like is relatable, but you also see that they're only talking about negative relatable things, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't want people to stay in the cycle of like, "Oh, yeah, me too," like, and never have inspiration to do anything different. But, this one actually got me where he was it was like a montage of people sitting down and holding onto a pillow, or sitting down and pulling a blanket up to them, or sitting down, and I was like, "Oh my god." Like, I remember when I first came here and sitting with my friends, I could not sit on the couch without a huggy pillow. Like, I was hugging the pillow. Like, it wasn't just in my lap. It was like I was so tense that I had to be literally physically tense in order to feel safe, which
Yeah.
is so weird, right? Like, it feels like it should be the opposite. But I felt like I was so anxious and life was so out of control that everything had to be such controlled action and in a ball, or else it would just spill everywhere and make a big mess, and so watching that reel, I was like, "Oh, I'm so glad that, like, that's not my life anymore," so that when
Mhm.
I get stressed, or when I start to hold what feels like tension, it's nothing like that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I know why it's here. I get why it's here. I hear the messages. I know that I'm gonna move through it. Like, it's such a different life, but it still exists this way where it builds up and you release it and you get the aftermath, which is,
Yeah.
oh god, I just need to, like, lay down.
Totally. Like, I could totally just go lay down and with my cat and just kind of, like, lay there and not even sleep. I'm not tired.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm just shut down, and
Yeah.
as you were talking, I was like, yeah, because that whole holding the pillow thing, when I am allowing the kind of wounded child part of me express herself, like, and like work out my feelings and my emotions and my anxiety, that's what I have a specific pillow I have to hug
Mhm.
in
Your huggy
order for
pillow.
her to feel safe enough to express what's going on internally, like that part of me. And I know you guys, you probably think, what is she talking about? I talk to, like, there's parts of us. We all have parts of us. We have the angry teenager, the wounded child, the inner child, all the brain, the self-saboteur. We have all these parts, and sometimes when we're feeling upset, we don't know why. It's because one of the parts are activated, and that's why I go into those spaces of like asking that part, like kind of doing a check-in internally, like, what are you feeling and why are you feeling? And yeah, so when you talk about the pillow, I'm like, no, I have a specific pillow. It was the one thing I wouldn't let them throw away when I left Vancouver. I'm like, you can't throw that pillow away.
Yeah.
It's important to my mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Right? Like, and it's weird because it's a body sensation thing too, right? Like, but it is also energetic, right? Like, when I'm holding a pillow here, my heart and my solar plexus and my, like, everything's really covered,
Yeah,
right? Like, it's very
protected.
protected. Yeah, right? Like, and so it can only come through my throat, which means it's gonna be filtered, right? And so, like, because I needed that so much. I needed to feel that. I mean, and even now, I mean, listen, I'm gonna expose myself. I have a blanket on and I have a heat pad on my abdomen. So, it's not like I've completely let go of the comforts of it, but now it's comfort,
Yeah.
right? Like, warmth and coziness makes me feel comfortable and I feel relaxed and I don't feel anxious. This has nothing to do with anxiety and
Yeah.
everything to do with release and relaxation. But yeah, we unloaded pretty hard this morning.
We did. We
We
did.
needed to.
I think so. And I think too is that I don't know. I agree. It's just I think it's hard sometimes because sorry, my brain went somewhere else. Um we don't know you're holding things. And I think it was funny because it made me think you having that conversation, you made me think about I just met my trauma therapist this week, my new one. Yes, I have 2 therapists. I highly recommend it. Having one that's a specialty therapist plus my talk therapist is like it's gonna be the secret sauce. I already know it because
Mhm.
I need that talk container. I need that talk therapy. It's important to me. It's how I communicate. It's how I process. But I need somebody who's specialized in brain work and parts work in order to help me maneuver through that. And so, anyways, And we didn't talk about things. We didn't I didn't necessarily share with her like I wouldn't talk therapy. It was a meet and greet kind of thing. It was the first initial, like, what are your goals? What are you coping with? What's alive for you right now? What do you think is the first couple things we need? What are the things that you feel you want to accomplish and whatever? And just in being in the presence of that person, I left being like, wow, I feel like I just like had an intense therapy session. And I didn't. I didn't. I didn't. And oh, and by the way, I am the client that always goes over time. And I'm sorry to all of my therapists.
Listen, I'm the therapist that never pays attention to time. So here's how about that, right? Because I'm into it too. And then I'm like, oh, like, and I used to, the platform that I used to have had a waiting room. So I would see when the next person would come in and I would get my little hint to like move it along, right? I don't have that anymore. I do have a timer, but the timer only starts like at exactly when the time starts, which also I never do. So then I'm in here doing math like, I don't remember when we started, so I don't know how much it's like watching a soccer game. You don't know how much the extra time is
Yeah.
because of the injuries, right? Like, and so you're just waiting for the double whistle to know that the game's over.
Yeah.
I feel like those are my sessions now. And I build in a buffer because I know that I tend to go over, but it gets wildly out of control sometimes because
Yeah.
it's not enough time. It's
No.
not enough time. But there's a sweet spot that I've noticed that like there is a such thing as too much, right? Because then it gets like out of hand and there's too much emotional stuff going on. So yeah, I feel you, man, because sometimes an hour and a half is the perfect sweet spot where you feel like you've gotten in, you allowed yourself to coast into the depth and then you climb out just enough that you're like there because I mean, I remember when I had to do 50-minute sessions because my last 10 minutes was for paperwork and I had to do it because I was so bad with paperwork anyway. 50 minutes is nothing.
Nope.
We barely covered like what happened in the week in 50 minutes sometimes.
We we friends, we talk for over 3 hours before we get to the podcast, and we're
Yeah.
still talking.
Yes. Seriously. It's
Oh.
true. And like yeah, but I think that's I mean, that again, like, well, we'll just let that tangent go of like, we wonder why we still have a mental health crisis. There's a lot
Yeah.
of therapists out there stopping you at 50 minutes because they have to, because that's how
Yep.
their schedule works, and we're not doing depth work at all.
Yeah. And you're only I'm just getting started always. It never fails. Within the last 15 minutes of my talk therapy sessions, I'm always like, "Oh yeah, and let me drop this bomb before I leave."
All the time, all the time, all the time, right? Because you get lost in everything and then you're like, "Oh, the thing," right? My
Yeah.
clients come with lists now. They literally comes with lists and they're like, "I'm not gonna get sidetracked," right? Like, and they show me the list. We always get somewhat sidetracked, but there's always like this time where it's like, "Okay, look at your lists and make sure,"
Yeah.
because you don't wanna walk away being like, "Damn it." Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my sweet Jesus. Yes.
Yeah.
So, it's yeah. Yeah, I am that person. And you know, and I 'cause she gives I think 53 minutes is what she schedules us for, and then and we started at 1, it was 2:05 when I left. Like, "Sorry." Her other person was waiting, and I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
It's so hard. It's hard. It's a hard place to have boundaries in because
Yeah.
it is true, and we are very much aware, or most of us are very much aware that we create trauma in those moments if we don't
Yeah.
follow through, right? Because if you get to like a real deep part and I say, "Well, time is up," I mean, I might as well be your parent telling you I don't care about your feelings, right? Because that's how your inner child sees that, right? Like of the invalidation of the big thing that I'm talking about right now because money or time or something else is more important, right? And that's hard.
Yep. It is, and one of the things she said to me was, "I will never let you leave mid-crisis." She's
Yeah.
like, "If we open something and you're like" she's
Mhm.
like, "I will not let you leave until we are stable." I'm like, "Thank you," because that sometimes happens,
Sure, sure.
you
But
know?
then like, on the other side too, right? It's great. There's so many stories. of like, because you are the kind of client you can trust with that information. There are other clients you cannot trust with that information because they
Yes.
will hold you hostage
Yep.
by creating crisis because
Right.
they don't wanna go home or they don't
Yeah.
wanna go out of there, and it again, like, it's not from a negative space of they're terrible people, but it is of, like, if this is your only safe place, you're gonna take advantage because your brain is just that's just what it's gonna do, stay in your safe place,
Yep.
and it becomes really, really hard because sometimes I am like, "We gotta go." Like,
Yep.
we have to. I can't be here for another 40 minutes.
Yeah. And,
It's hard.
and also, yeah, and because it's like, and I get that. I have when I teach, Hollow Bone Journey, a couple times there's somebody who, you know, who wasn't able to, pay for the retaking of the course, and so I
Mm,
offered, for the moment, and then it became an expectation of future classes, and
mm,
I'm not saying that's a bad thing, 'cause
mhm,
she was in a place where she needed to feel community,
mhm.
but there was also a time and a place where, there was a refusal of participating,
Yeah,
and then you kinda become this space of not, I don't know, you become the anchor in the group versus being sharing the inspiration and being in the energy. If you're not participating, there's no energy and there's no forward movement because 'cause you're not doing anything, and so
yeah,
there's a kind of a blanket over the class, so
yeah.
anyways.
And it's hard, right? Like, because when you're the person, right? Like, when you're the quote unquote leader, regardless of what the position is, whether you're the teacher, quote unquote, or the therapist or whatever, I think it's really hard, especially like I'll speak for myself. It's hard for me to not take responsibility for that. I mean, I did it in our previous thing where I was like, like thinking about, well, if somebody doesn't get somewhere, I missed something. Right? Like, I'll immediately try to take responsibility for it by saying, "I missed something. I haven't taught them what they needed to learn, or else we wouldn't be in this position," right? And,
Yeah.
like, yes and no, right? Like, because usually what I haven't taught them is boundaries that I have some. Um, right? So, like, that's me. But then also, there is that expectation that the other person has to be able to hold on to the work that you're doing and actually be implementing it, and how difficult it is when you're on the other side realizing that somebody's not doing the work,
Yeah.
and tiptoeing around like, do I keep trying to get them to do the work or do I have to not, you know?
Yeah. That's
It's
hard
hard. It is, it's very hard.
because our bleeding hearts tell us one thing, but our higher self is like, "Girl, you're enabling them, you're not helping them."
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
my big thing lately. Like, enabling versus helping. And I remember when we were doing the MeWe fairs with Lorelai,
Yeah.
I remember she would say, like, if she was doing too much, she would go, "I'm sorry, I overhelped." And, like, ever since I heard her say that, it, like, rings in my head of, like, overhelping is a thing.
Yeah.
It is a
Right?
thing, and you don't need to do it. 'Cause
Crazy.
that's how you get on the enabling train is
Yeah.
overhelping.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we were talking about boundaries, one of the things I, I guess everybody's probably heard this, and I'm sure many people have, but when we talk about people pleasing and not having boundaries or codependency, it's an emotional manipulation by the person who needs that person to feel that they're worthy. It's not
Mhm,
because I'm trying to help them or be of assistance. It is, but it's more or less because I have an agenda behind that, in
mhm,
that making sure that they're okay, but also with the codependency, it's making sure I'm okay, like, that I'm
mhm.
liked or valued, or that I'm important to them, and in that emotional manipulative kind of way, and in the setting of the boundaries, it's more of the boundaries of the self, right?
Yeah,
It's the boundaries of, like, how much do I give, and what is the agenda behind me giving?
yeah,
And am I just giving because, I have the bandwidth, I have the space, and I want to? Am I over giving? And am I giving at the expense of myself?
Yeah.
And
It's a
that was a
delightful talk.
huh?
It's a delightful talk to have with
Yeah.
yourself.
That was like, oh, I kinda had to be like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. No, it's a sucky talk, right?
It
Like,
was
I mean, it can be. I mean, sometimes it's empowering, but I think when you're a recovering people pleaser, it a lot of times goes to a place that's stingy.
yeah,
At the very least, you're just like, "Yikes, like, how does this happen without me noticing?" Like, that's what I think happens to me when I actually have that talk where I'm like, "How? How did you do that?" Like,
yes.
what was the progression? Because that was very sneaky, right? Like, I didn't see that happening, because it's not like it usually is where there's an angry person and I'm just people pleasing. Like, that's pretty easy to know when I'm doing that. But like, that motivation thing, it's funny that you brought that up because I feel like the motivation for some of the things I've done for people recently has been reputation based. And, I hated having that conversation with myself because, I joke that I'm in my Emily Gilmore era now where I'm just kind of like, "Hey, you know what? Like, I have to act like I know what I deserve," and, not to the extent of the elitist stuff that she talks about, but, like, act like I know what I deserve and what I don't deserve and, stand on it. And so I was discovering through all of this talk that I'm having with myself that many times I am trying to keep the peace with people because I am afraid of what is going to be said about me if I don't. And it's like reputation, ego
Ouch.
for sure. Yeah, right. Like, but like different ego. You know what I mean? Like where it's not like my professional, like, oh my God, because I feel like I've done a fairly good job of getting over that, where I'm just like, well, if you don't want me as a counselor, then you don't have to come to me. It's totally fine. Like, find your person. If I'm not your person, go find your person. If it's very clear that you don't like the way that I do things, go find somebody who you like the way they do it because you're not going to be able to do good work with me. I don't want anybody here who can't work with me because it's not good for either one of us. But I did notice, like in my personal life, it still happens. And I had to go through that whole thing of being like, all right, brain. And all my clients, if any of my clients are listening, I teach you to do this. And so I'm proving to you that I do it to myself, right? Like I'm not just lip service.
You're
All
not
right,
just telling them
brain.
to do something you don't do.
Exactly. Right. And I can tell you in detail because I do it in detail. I'm not just wasn't just a book that somebody told me to do it and we're just step by stepping. I know what it's like to do these steps, of saying, okay, well, so what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen if that person badmouths you to people? Where is your brain really going? Right? Like, oh well, and it depends on the person, right? Like the different things. So like if it's a romantic partner, where I'm like, oh, we're gonna go tell everybody, right? Because now we have these groups. I mean, I'm in the groups, of like warning people about red flags and horrible people out there because we got to take care of each other. And being like, like, what if I get posted and they only tell their side of the story because they're gonna? I mean, everybody does that for the most part. Um, and then nobody ever likes me again. Right. And I was like, "That's a pretty far-fetched," like, and I'm like, "Is that really what's going on, brain? I mean, do you really think that? Because that's weird." Right? Like that I don't think that that's gonna happen. Right? And like going into that reality check and but then being like, "Well, what is it really that you're worried about other people are going to think of you?" It's not about not liking you, but, thinking that you're a cold person and you don't ever want people to think you're a cold person, right? Because it feels very much like you don't see me and I'm not seen as who I am and I don't want to be misunderstood in the world, right? But then, when you go into family relationships, right? Like, well, what do I think is gonna happen
It's not.
if I make them mad,
Yeah.
right? They're gonna guilt me. They're gonna tell me I'm a bad this, that, or the other. They're gonna say I'm selfish. They're gonna yada yada. Okay, well, what's the danger there?
Yep.
What's the danger? And what's really happening? Are those people asking you to see them and not see yourself?
Yeah.
Because if that's happening, then that's not okay either, right? And, having those talks with myself helps bring me down because I need to stop enabling people. I need to stop over helping. I need to stop like making my boundaries loose because of what I fear happens if I hold them.
Ugh, yes. Yeah. And that's in human design, that's a manifestor trait, and you're a manifesting generator. I mean, not to say other people don't have it, but one
Mhm.
of the things is one of the things I've been working on, and they keep talking about in as a manifestor in human design, is being okay with people not misunderstanding you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, I don't like that.
Yeah. I
It's
know, but
hard.
it's a concept though. Like when you go down and, again, like when I teach my clients to drill down, like go down as far as the depths of that fear goes. What does it mean to be misunderstood? What's the danger to your life that makes your brain activated to tell you to make it stop? What
Right.
is the danger that you're perceiving? Right? Your whole career is going to go down the tubes.
Yeah.
Not possible, right? Like, because you have plenty of people who have experienced, you know, your kind of counseling who has worked for them, you watch it happen, you've watched the people grow, that there's validity there.
Yeah.
So that's not it, right? Like, and just kind of drilling down, well, what is it, right? Like, what does being misunderstood really mean? And then when you widen that out and you look at how many people are misunderstood and they're still doing their thing, it's like, oh, yeah, you have to get over that in order to continue doing your thing because it
Yeah.
is not possible for every human to understand.
No. No, and the thing of it is people are going to be gravitated towards the opinion that is connected to their energy, right? If they're a person who's super judgmental of themselves, they're going to hang on to that opinion that's super judgmental of others. And it
Mm,
doesn't matter. You could do and be the perfect person, and it's all determined by that person's energy.
yeah,
And it has nothing really to do with you, or
yeah.
us, or anybody who's worried about that, because it's a losing battle to think that we can. I hate it when I say this. That
I just watched your brain or your mouth be like, "No, we're gonna
it's
have
a
to say it."
it's a losing battle when we think we can. I'm going to use the word manipulate, even though I don't want
Yeah.
to. Others' opinions about ourselves,
Mhm.
about us. Like it's impossible.
Yeah,
Like, and some people don't want good opinions of people because it's easier to hate people than it is to like see them as the true person. And to be honest with you, they're not the people that we want in our scopes of our professional scopes or in our personal lives.
yeah, yeah. I had to discover that there was somebody that was very close to me that I realized never wanted me to be celebrated because they were already envious of who I was. And so they were never gonna celebrate me. I was never gonna be the person that they were like, "Oh my god, I'm so grateful for you," because they already hated what I was. Hated is such a strong word. They already resented what
Yeah.
I was because they were comparing themselves to me. And it
Yeah.
was like, that's unfair. And I didn't do that. And I don't even
Right.
have any expectation because I don't even see myself that way. Right. Like because everybody's in their own head, I'm very concentrated on all the things I'm working on. I'm not celebrating over here like, oh my God, you should be like me
Oh my
ever.
god, you suck because I'm better than you are.
Ever. Right?
Yeah,
Like, if I beat you at a game, I guarantee I'm thinking about the things that I've done wrong than the fact that I beat you, and that's
exactly.
the truth. I mean, as much as I love hockey and I'm just like, "Oh my god, I do it for fun," after every single game, I'm like, I have moments where I'm like, "That sucked." Like, I hate it, right? We could have won. I could have scored goals. I could have done all these amazing things. I'm gonna think about those things. I'm never in the energy of I'm better than you. But
Yeah,
when somebody is that person and they're
yeah,
highly critical of themselves and others, they resent you for having what they don't have,
yeah,
And I recognized it very clearly when I zoomed out and I was like, "Oh, it makes sense why everything was a goddamn competition all
yeah,
the time. everything was, "I'm smart," like, the fights would have to be about, "I know more than you," like, if we had to go do something, it was like, "I'm gonna beat you at this," and if you're not giving it like, there were times where we would, like, go play a sport, and I'm just not always on because 'cause I'm not actually super competitive with anybody but myself, so
Yeah.
sometimes I'm not on, and this person was like, "You're not even giving me any competition today," and I was like, "That's not what I'm here for."
I'm sorry. Did I enter the wrong place? Like,
Yeah, like, "Oh, but I see what you came here for. You
yeah.
came here for an ego boost. You wanted to beat me. That's the only reason why we're here. You didn't come
Yeah.
here because you wanted to have fun with me. You came here because you wanted to beat me,
Yeah.
and it's not fun to beat me if I'm not almost beating you, I guess. I don't know. It was fucking weird energy, and I was like, "This sucks." Like, I don't want that, and I get it that some people are feel that way about me because my ADHD has worked in my favor my whole life.
Yeah.
It makes me know a lot of things. It makes me curious about a lot of things so that I will know a lot of things.
Yeah.
It makes me forget about um it makes me forget about self-conscious things sometimes, so I'll go do something that other people are afraid to do because I'm too lost in the thing to be
Yeah.
afraid of it.
Yeah.
It's always afterwards where I'm like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you just did that."
What did I just do?
Oh, it's out there in reality, like, everybody saw it, always afterwards, right? And I see how, like, if somebody is afraid to do life, that would be intimidating to them, and
Yeah.
so I would then try to manage that for them somehow by dimming my light or by not whatever, and it was like, "This is just dumb, like, you can't do that to yourself."
Yep. Yeah. And that's I mean, when I look back at all the places where I have been less than to not hurt people's feelings,
Mm,
like, it's just I'm like, "Oh my god, like, really?" But at the same time, I understood, I
yeah,
understood where I was, and I understood my needs at the moment, and my needs was not exclusatory, and I needed community, I needed people because
mm,
I was,
yeah,
it's a major theme of my life, but, um, it's it's so hard. It's sometimes so
mhm,
hard because especially when you care about the people that are like that.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
mhm,
the judgments that get placed on people from people that are hurt and people that are judging themselves, and when they're people you love and you really care about and you want relationship with, to find that out is like, "Oh man, really?" Like,
yeah,
to cope with that is it's hard because they're never gonna not be that.
right,
They've been taught to be that's how they prove themselves, and that if they're not winning or the best or know the most, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
most of the
100%.
times they're taught that, so it's hard to get them to see anything different.
Yeah. Well, and then, more of the self-talk then becomes, "Well, how did I get here?" You know what I mean? Like, what excuses have I made for this person to even get in this space, right? Like, how and this is what I was saying before, where you're just like, "I don't understand what happened," right? Like, because you wake up and you open your eyes and you see very clearly everything that happened. You're like, where was this knowledge back then?"
Yeah,
Right? So that I could see this person because when you were describing it of being like, "When I love and I care for them," it's like, how did I get to love and care for somebody who was like this? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, how did I get so deeply ingrained in a person who invalidated you on a regular basis?
people pleasing,
Exactly. And it's like, how do
codependency.
you stop it? Right? Like, how do you stop it? It's compassion, right? Like, so I mean, y'all, I'm telling you this honestly. I have to do this work all the time because of who I am. I'm
Yeah,
always gonna be somewhat of a people pleaser just because I have a bleeding heart. Not because I wanna manipulate stuff, but because I feel so bad for people.
right,
My empathy it hits before I give it permission
right.
all the time.
It comes out before you've even been prepared for it.
All the time. No matter even if I walk in and be like, "I'm gonna feel nothing," like, it's not possible. I'm gonna feel
No.
something. It's
Yeah,
never not gonna happen. So, I'm, like, on the war path with myself almost immediately because I feel compassion for people. I feel people's stories. I want them to be happy, healthy, whatever, and when I feel like I have something that they could use to feel better, I wanna give it to them, whatever that is, whether it's time or talking or I want to because I feel their pain, and that's where it starts every single time, is that I feel for you, I want to help, and then I get lost in that cycle of what happens if I abandon them now? I already took this on. Now you are important to them. You know, cutting them off is wrong. You're their lifeline. Like there's multitudes of things that go through my head when I'm having to have a boundary. And if I would have a boundary from the start, these things wouldn't happen. If I were able to recognize my empathy and put a boundary up right away, I wouldn't get in these positions, and that's the work that I've been doing of being able to go, I can feel bad for people and my empathy is gonna be there because I can't turn it off, but I have to let my brain come in. That's where I do have to let my brain come in and
Yeah.
say, "Nope, this this is as far as you have to go. That's it."
And, when I get it. I get it because I struggle with the same. And I always ask myself when I'm wanting to offer or do something or, whatever, I always say, I always ask myself, do I have the bandwidth? Do I, am I doing this because I have the extra energy. I have the extra mental capacity. I have the
Mm,
extra space. Like I always have to check in with me because I'm a self-sacrificer, right? It's the
mhm,
human design 3-5. I'm a heretic martyr, right? I'm the self-sacrificer. That's kind of like my theme in my life. And to understand that is I always have to kind of go from that space of, is this helping because you're trying to fix them? Or is this helping because you want to enable them to know that they can fix themselves? Is it just momentary, or is this a new project you've decided to take on?
yeah,
Yeah, it's not easy, man. But at the same time, but that's what makes us uniquely us.
yeah,
That's the superpower of who we are, what we do. And unfortunately, we have to be self-monitoring, you know?
yeah, or else I mean, because as you were just talking, I was like, "Oh," that's what our morning was about.
Yeah.
Right, the dumping that put us in this place that we're in right now where we're, like, totally ethereal and tangential and just being like, "Whatever, let's the stream of consciousness come through," is because of everything that we've just outlined being the work that we're doing, right? Like, those positions or those things that we were talking about in our pregame, we're there because
Yeah.
of exactly this thing that we're talking about, of, like, how did we get so deep in this that we feel like we can't get out,
Yeah.
or that if we do get out, there are major consequences emotionally, so
Yep.
we don't, you know what I mean? And it is
And
wild.
it's hard, especially when it's, I'll share because I don't think he listens to the podcast at all. So I'm safe to share it here. Uh, y'all know I have a friend up in Vancouver, Portland, where I was, and that was my practice relationship on how not to be people pleasing and codependent because it started out very much that way.
Mhm.
And it sucks because I became so much of that that, I'm not saying I did anything wrong or that
Mm,
I'm mad at myself or I did everything I needed to do in those moments because I needed to learn something.
sure.
And by the end, with me leaving, understanding that he was already looking to find a person to fulfill the need that I fulfilled for him
Mhm.
was a rude awakening for
Yeah.
me.
Mhm.
It was like, "You're replaceable. You're not like," and it's not in that, "Oh my god, we can replace you," kind of like corporate job shit, but
Mhm.
it was of the essence of, "I'm doing this because I care, because," and I was worried. I'm like, I'm leaving and all these things that I help with, all these things that I do, and so on and so forth. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then he's like, yeah, he says, I asked this person to help me do this. And I'm like, good, good,
Yeah.
good, good.
Yeah.
Um,
Eyes open. Eyes
yeah.
open.
And I I just because I did feel guilt about leaving the situation because I felt like I had enabled so much of my time for him that it became important to his mental health. And I think some of it
Mhm.
did because
Mhm.
I but it's like, oh God, even pulling back as much as I pulled back and stopped doing some of the things and stopped like the minute he needed something and not reacting and going and helping like that.
Mhm.
And it wasn't even a relationship, it was just a friendship. And that's even like more of the sticking
I
point
know. Same,
is like,
same.
oh my God, you're giving so much of the relationship energy to a person you're not in a relationship with and never will be. And
Yeah.
so it was a clear I just gained so much clarity in how I fall into that. And
Mhm.
even when I pulled back and started to like not jump and save and, "Oh, I'll help you," or, "Oh, it's okay." I would ask, "Do I have the bandwidth to myself?" And I'd be like, "No, I don't. I don't have the emotional bandwidth right now." I'm like, "Okay, then you're not offering." And but even then, there was still entrenched things that
Yeah.
I did, and I'm not saying I'm not gonna help people, and I'm not saying I'm not gonna do maybe the exact same thing, but I will be more inclined to be self-monitoring and practice self-monitoring and mindfulness around where am I at, right?
Yeah, for sure. And why are these people needing this? Like, I think that, because same, like we went through similar types of situations with the situations being a little bit different. But, like to me, like I was so hurt when I realized how replaceable I was.
Yeah,
Hurt because I was like, I thought I was important. And then I was embarrassed with myself because I was like, how did you think you were important? Like, where like, gross, you know what I mean? Like, you were chasing a person who didn't care about you, right? Like, all of these things came rushing in, and it's not true, but it's not true to the capacity of what I can imagine of a friendship that close would be about,
yeah,
right? And so that's where the pain came from,
yeah,
was like, "Oh my god, like, we are not even on the same level when it
right,
comes to depth of connection." And I didn't get that, but I did, you know what I mean? Like, and then you
yes,
go backwards and you're like, "Ah, I knew it." Like, what
the
was I
writing was on the
doing?
wall.
What am I doing? Right? But it was those little moments. It wasn't they were little moments that we acted on, little moments of guilt, and never the guilt being I feel guilty for what I've done to myself, always the guilt of what
Yeah,
I've done to the other person.
right,
And again, when people are in survival mode, they're very good at creating guilt
yes.
situations, especially when they know that you are a guilt-ridden type person in those
You
situations.
have tendencies of guilt.
Absolutely, they know exactly what words to say, because again, like, not because they're maliciously doing it, but because they're in a survival cycle, and they can't lose their survival, so they're going to get creative, um, and yeah, I mean, it is wild, but I definitely felt the same thing, and I actually had I had a little taste of the replaceableness thing, and then I let my ego be like stroked when it didn't work out for them and they came back to me, right? Because I got the like, "Well, yeah, see? See?" Right? And then it was like, "Oh, no, not see, not see.
No,
No, no, no, no, no, no. That's not what you're supposed to see." You were supposed to see that they had no problem going and trying to find another person to replace you, and
right,
then not even talking to you, basically, right? Like, that can't be any more clear of how much you don't matter, right? In terms of anything other than what you provide for that person,
yeah,
right? And it was like a big awakening for me. But like you were saying, like, I feel like I won't get in those situations again because of understanding that it didn't just come out of nowhere. It didn't come out of nowhere. I just didn't want to see what I saw in front of me. When you see people who don't have relationships with other people. The idea that you think that they're gonna have a deep relationship with you is absolutely asinine. Right?
No, Vanessa, say it isn't so.
Right? Like, when you see what the way that they talk about their friends, or they talk about their family relationships, or they talk about their history, and you don't see depth, and you don't see connectivity, and you don't see, like, all the beautiful things that you have in your own friendships, you are a fool if you think that that person's gonna be able to connect with you on that level. A
Yeah, or
fool,
yeah, yep,
right?
it yep, and totally, and then but then I go into that space of, okay, what cellular memory beacon are you putting out there that you haven't coped with, that you're
Yeah.
attracting the people that I mean, we're all you're always gonna be susceptible, we're always gonna be susceptible to that type of person, but what is it that in that moment was I emitting that attracted that person?
Yeah, I can't stop giving. I don't feel right if I'm not giving.
Yeah,
I feel super weird when I'm not giving.
yeah,
It's like I'm ignoring my purpose if I'm not
it
giving to somebody, if I'm not taking care of somebody. I'm a caretaker,
yeah, yeah,
both
I
by
get it.
nature and by practice because of my life. But
Yeah,
yeah, but it is definitely like, all right, how else can you use that energy though? So that is actually going to benefit you because, going back to the idea of I've worked so hard to have this life. And if other people are gonna benefit at the same level that I do, because of my hard work, that doesn't make any sense. That's not being smart. You gotta do better.
what do you mean? What do you mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
I
my
know. That's freaking crazy. But
or
I mean,
you just connect with another people pleaser, and then y'all are just trying to please, it's
it'll never happen. So, like, I really had this conversation with somebody where I was like, I used to say I wanted to find somebody in a romantic relationship that's like me, and then I was like,
yeah,
I can't be with somebody like me because I'll hate it
yeah,
because I have a role that I have to play
yep,
because it's me.
yep,
But what I have to be able to do is switch that thing within me that allows receive mode, or else I'm never gonna find somebody who wants to give because they need a place to plug into, right? So if I don't have an outlet, I'm not gonna get plugs.
yep,
And so I'm
yeah,
learning I'm learning that. I'm learning that alongside some of my clients, and I don't mind saying it because I understand that, like, I'm a human being and I'm not gonna have everything 100% dialed in, but you bet your sweet ass that do it I'm gonna do it.
yeah.
That's the
Do it.
self-competition, like, "Oh, yeah? Watch how fast I do this.
Yeah,
I
it's
will conquer the shit out of that now that I know it's there."
well, it's like being in competition with yourself, right? It's like looking at, oh my, like, okay, this needs to change. You know what I mean? And
Mm,
yeah. Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
yeah,
Yeah,
'cause that
totally.
internal pride I've learned how to be addicted to. So it's like, "Oh, no, 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 I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it so that I can friggin' say I did it. I
Yeah.
can feel the pride for doing it, and so I'm gonna conquer this so that I can bask in the glory of having conquered it for the rest of my life." Yeah,
Mm.
so,
I don't even know.
yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting all the places that we've gone today, but I feel
Well,
like the places that we go when we're empty and we're
yeah,
just like, "Well, we'll just see what happens."
we'll just see. We'll just talk. One of the thoughts, we talk about partners and people pleasing and I've been kind of in that space of like, okay, well, you're thinking about it. What does that look like? And I have, you know, I don't know. Like there's some of it I know and there's some of it I don't know and I just know that I think there's, when we're talking about people pleasing and partners or even friendships, like do I trust myself to not enter into that space or to be have my own internal boundaries of for myself of the overgiving and like will I catch I don't know that I trust my I'll catch myself and I think experiencing my friendship in Portland and the outcome of it now that I'm not of use to that person Not saying he doesn't care or love me, but
Mhm.
there's far less conversation, there's far less connection, there's far less, like,
Mhm.
you know, and I'm like, "Okay, I don't know that I wanna I just don't wanna go through that again." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's hard, and yeah.
It's hard to
So
know and trust in yourself, but what I've discovered is that I will and this is what I discovered during the time period of just going, "Well, I'm not gonna do it," especially in the dating thing, 'cause I'm friendships of like, I have that dialed in, like, I feel like I have great friendships, like, I have some that are like, I don't even have to do anything, like, they're the most effortless, most loving, most amazing friendships. I've got that, I feel like, dialed in. I don't typically have the, like, betrayal talk or anything
yeah,
I mean, I've found, like, a lot of those people, but relationships are such a freaking struggle for me because
yeah,
I'm a caretaker, and I I believe that in a relationship, caretaking is important, right? And so I'm gonna do it. Like, there's no not gonna do it. But what I've discovered is that there was no way in between that time between when I said I was going to not date because I don't understand what to do and I don't trust myself, and the time that I decided to give myself a shot, I didn't learn anything that made me feel any more trusting because the only way I was gonna trust myself was trial and error. And I
yeah,
had to get okay with that. Like, that's what I ended up having to do in that time period was the only way that you're gonna trust yourself, like I was saying earlier in this in the podcast, is trial and error.
yeah.
Like, that's you can't strengthen a muscle without using it.
Ugh,
And so, you're gonna have to go to the relationship gym. You're gonna have to go to it,
I
and
don't wanna.
I know, and I didn't wanna either, and that was the best time for me to go,
Yep,
was because I was bitchy and unyielding and judgmental and swiping left on everybody. And I was like, this is good. It feels empowering, right? And then I had to, once I got through that, I had to go, all right, everybody can't be bad. You've got to like slow down, like take that energy, slow down. So you're understanding that you at least have willpower. And
yep,
that's something that you needed to have because I did pause before swiping on quite a lot of people, and that was a self-development tool for me that I went into it using, saying, "You're going to be able to discern why you're doing things, or else you're not gonna do them." Right? And so it's, like, super mindful, and so, yeah, I've had to have lots of conversations. I've had to question myself. I've had to talk to my intuition multiple times in this journey, but every time I got better at it. Every time, like that emotional muscle, I feel it getting stronger. That even when I know I'm entertaining something that I got an intuitive hit about, I am no longer getting lost in the thing that maybe that person's trying to get me lost in. Right.
yeah.
I'm like, no, I will not be freaking sidetracked. I see what you're doing. No. Right. Like very recently, this person you can tell was like wanting to get to know me and doing all the things and talking the right way and like because they know that I'm a therapist and being like, oh yeah, and talking all therapy talk and I'm self work and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that sounds good. I need to know what your life is like, right? Like anybody can say these words. I now know that I have to look for clues in your real life of whether or not this is what you've created. Because if you've been doing the work, you're going to have friendships like I have, right? You're going to have family relationships like I have, where even if they're tumultuous, you're not like having discord all the time and everything like that, right? Because you're showing that your emotional maturity in all of those situations. And don't you know, it came right back, it came right up, and it was a double whammy. It was definitely like, give me your opinion, like I want some free therapy, right? Which boundary I've had to put up like a lot of times, but then also seeing the mindset of how they think about those people and what they deserve and the control they think they deserve to have over people. Immediately, I was like, I'm not giving you excuses. And I've done it in the past. I've given, especially to men, I give men way more excuses than they should have because I feel so bad, right? You were
Yeah.
never taught this. Oh my God, the world is so mean to you. It is 2024. Mental
Yeah,
health is everywhere. There
yeah,
is no excuse anymore, right? So I have regained trust in myself by doing these exercises, and I've realized it's the only way that I gain that trust, because me having done that makes me feel even stronger.
yeah,
And I'm not tied to the outcome. I don't care that I've not gone on one date since I started this. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean I'm not likable. It doesn't mean any of those things that my ego might have said before. It means I'm being extremely discerning. And if I believe there's one person, then there's not going to be 7 people. Right.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
all good, you know? But yeah, it's hard. It's that's like a hard area to trust, because there's trial and error, there's slips and falls, there's times where you do realize that you've entertained things for a little longer than you should have, but the goal is progress, to be
yeah,
able to say, well, I didn't do it to the extent I did before, and that means I've learned.
yeah. Truth.
It's hard. I've got a lot of clients that date, and we talk about this all the time, where they're just like, oh, like, I've wasted so much time. Like, you didn't waste time. It takes time. That's the
Yeah,
unfortunate thing about all of this. It takes time to get to know people.
yeah,
Period.
yeah. Yeah, still not sure I wanna enter
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
dating
I
world
mean, you
again.
don't do it until you're ready. I mean, I didn't do it until I was bitchy, because I was like, your empathy can't go in that space. You're just gonna be like that. And then also your fun person can't go in that space, because you're gonna swipe on everybody that has a hat on backwards, and you know that that's wrong.
Oh my gosh.
A hat backwards, a smirk, and tattoos. Swipe left immediately. That
Yeah,
was exactly what I said to no, those are straight no's right now. And that seems very judgmental, but I said to the universe, I trust you that
yeah,
that my match isn't going to look like that, because I've already told you. I said I'm going to say no,
yeah.
just so you know, and I'm going to prove it to you, because if you put my match there and I say no and I quote unquote missed it, that's your fault, because I told you I was going to do it. You better bring them back around without a hat pick.
Yeah, a shirt on to cover the tats.
Yeah. Right, absolutely, or whatever it is, whatever I was attracted to, that I was like, "No, we're doing it different this time."
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
yeah.
Well,
Because I don't
friends,
wanna be exhausted anymore. I'm tired of, like, as much as I love that we have this space and that we support each other, like, I can't say enough how this morning I was like, "I'm done with us being in this space." Like, we don't deserve to have to do this.
yeah,
This is not fair. We've worked so hard.
yeah,
Like, it's not fair. Never again. I don't wanna be here again.
yeah, true.
So,
Me either. And I think, we talking about that, I think, subconsciously that's why I've doubled down so hard at like the new therapist, the
mhm,
physical therapy, the
mhm,
all the things that I've doubled down really hard on since I got here with
yeah.
no real plan to do so. Like I wasn't like, this is what I'm gonna do. It was just this act of this needs to be taken care of. This is not okay. I'm not okay. We need to do this, like kind of energy. And so
Mhm.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree in a lot of
And
ways to what you're saying.
and I'm proud of you for doing it, because I feel like it is like, for lack of a better way to say it, now that you're somewhere where you have nobody to take care of, you only have yourself.
Don't
Shoot,
don't
now I have
expose
all the
me.
time in the world to take care of myself.
Uh, that was the universe's subterfuge, I think.
Right? Like, we gotta get her away from all these things. She's never gonna stop. I mean, I feel the same way, right? Like, I mean, I need
Yeah,
to be intervened with sometimes, because I'll keep doing it because I care, and you have a big heart and you care,
I
and you don't
do.
ever want to let anybody down. You don't ever want anybody to feel the way that people have made you feel.
Yeah, and I think too is that I think I find people suffer so hard at not having somebody who's understanding, and
Mhm.
I'm that person who will be understanding, and so then I
Mhm.
overwork that understanding, and then it becomes like, I don't wanna be understanding anymore.
Yeah. Right. Like, I want to understand with some expectation
Yeah.
that we're not going to just only understand forever.
It's like learning how to be understanding and using your empathy but having self boundaries, right? At the same time, you can
Mhm.
understand and be empathetic, but you don't necessarily have to fix it or take it control or do anything to help them, because just being that is enough. So
Yeah. Well, and I used to tell myself, and like it was pretty harsh, and I let go of it, but some of it has to come back around with different language. I used to say, I don't want to hear it if you're not going to do anything about it. And I understand that that's super harsh the way I used to say it, but now I understand what track I was on. It was the right track. It was just too far.
yeah,
Pendulum way over here. I'm very uncaring, but it is still true. I
yeah,
can be empathetic and I can sit with you and I can have compassion. But if you are never going to take a step, I'm not going to sit in that space with you forever. I'm
yeah,
not, because it's not good for you. It's got not good for me. That's where the enabling comes in. It's okay to be in a rough spot, but it's not okay to never, ever transmute it.
yep, 1000%, 1000%. Well, friends, we have talked very long today. And I mean, like in total, because like I'm like, oh, we started this at like 9 o'clock. It's like 1
Yeah.
p.m.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we hope you've enjoyed the journey down the length of our subconscious and our conscious thoughts. And it's like kind of being present for one of our pre-games.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, literally, you were just like, or we can just hit record right now. Like, all
Yeah.
right, let's do it. Keep it rolling.
Oh my gosh, Vanessa, if I ever forget to tell you, please always know, and I'm putting it here to have it in infamy forever, how grateful I am for you and
Same.
this space for us. Because
Same.
I don't know. I'm just
These
so
past
grateful.
4 years have been so beautiful because of this space that we've created together, and
Yeah.
I feel the same way. Like, I'm so grateful, and that's why I will always do it. Like, people are like, "Well, what do you do with your podcast?" I'm like, "We do it. That's what we
Yeah.
do with our podcast."
We post it, we
We post
upload it.
Yeah.
Speaking of our podcast and posting and uploading, please, if you're in a space where you're a YouTube user, Vanessa has done so much hard work in getting our YouTube channel going. We will be posting. It's more of the audio with
Yes.
a picture. And if you want to just go listen while you're doing things, and, and we're going to post episodes there. And so if you're a YouTuber versus a Spotify or Apple podcast, go there, catch it. It's going to be uploaded whenever, but it'll all be there.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
trying to do them like the day after they go out or the day of if I can, just to kind of keep on somewhat of a schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like it was time. We tried to do it one other time and it wasn't time, and that's why it didn't happen. And we kept talking about doing it with video, and I ran across somebody who wasn't doing it with video, and I was like, good enough for them, good enough for me.
Yeah. The
So
ultimate permission just to do whatever.
absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
whatever, man. People,
Mhm.
I always have YouTube on, not watching it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm watching people's
Oh,
podcasts, but I'm not watching it. I'm listening.
it'll be in the background, like I'm doing work or doing something else. And sometimes logging onto Spotify on my computer is like a nightmare.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
So, yeah, so we're
Yeah.
there. Woo.
So go check us out. What is the channel? What is the is it
I'm
at
pretty sure
Freud's
it's just
Angels?
Freud's Angels, yeah.
Yeah. So go to at Freud's Angels, or just, kind of Google us in the YouTube place. But yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next week. Take care.
All right, love y'all. Thanks for listening.
We hope we gave you something to support your journey.
Check out our Facebook or Instagram page to connect with us.
Have a great week.